Howdy, 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 gang. It is Tuesday. So, did you have a case of the Mondays? Was it pretty blah? Were you like, oh, geez, I'm back to work, back to school? Blah. Or are you the sort of person who's like, the heck with Bob Geldof? I love Mondays. Mondays are great. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know the sort of person you are. But there is one thing that I do know for certain, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy gang, Jeff McAleer once again, and I am your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as the Grand Poobah of thegaminggang.com. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, and I've got quite a bit cooking today. Got some news for you. I've got a game review for you. Gonna talk about one of the giveaways that's going on right now in well over an hour, as usual. So I do want to point out a couple of quick things before I jump into the show. I do have both cats hanging around here in the duct tape studios right now. So Pinky is floating around. May hear her making some noise. And of course, Smokey is roaming around. In fact, I think, all right, you want to come up, Smokey? Come on. Come on. You coming? Hey, come on. This is live. This is a live show. Let's go. You can't be sitting there trying to figure out what you want to do. You know, she's roaming around my feet here, so I assume she'll be up here any moment. Yes. All right, so that was the first thing I was going to mention. The kitties are hanging out down in the duct tape studios, so don't be shocked if we hear wow from Pinky. You'll never see Pinky. I say that all the time. She is not a lap cat by any stretch of the imagination. Second thing I do want to mention is chat is available. Oh, here comes Smokey. Hello, Smokey. Say hello to everybody again. Oh, yes. Can't see you. There you go. All right. Okay. Relax. Lay down. I got a bunch of stuff set up on the table here, so don't be jumping. Second thing I was going to mention, chat is available through Twitch as well as YouTube. It is not on the screen. That is one of the ways that I kind of keep the trolls at bay. But when I do my review of Chariots of Rome in just a few moments, if you have any questions, if you want to get a better look at something, feel free to ask. If you just want to say hello, by all means, say howdy. I will say hello right back. Okay, so anyway, today's Tuesday. I watched The Alienist last night. Boy, I keep saying that's a really good show. Really cool show. I like the novel. It's been years and years since I read the novel. It's got to be over a decade. So I have kind of forgotten some things that were taking place in the story that took place in last night's episode. I'm not spoiling anything. All I'm saying is if you dig history, if you like mysteries, kind of serial killer sorts of things, then by all means, check out The Alienist over on TNT. All right, so I'm going to jump into news. It wasn't a whole ton of news again today. Still a bunch of stuff popping up about Kickstarters that either A, I have really no interest in. To be honest, it's kind of a waste of time for folks to send me emails for like metal coins and things like that on Kickstarter, because it's not really something I'm going to cover. I try to tackle games, not gaming accessories that are all over the place, that there's tons of already. But then some of them were just way too far out. But I do have a Kickstarter news piece coming up. But first off, I want to talk about a new expansion for the Bezier Games 18XX title Whistle Stop, which is going to incorporate the mighty Rocky Mountains. It's going to be arriving this summer, and I've got the dope. The Rocky Mountains have always inspired with their majestic heights and seemingly insurmountable peaks. The Rocky Mountains expansion literally expands the Whistle Stop game board, adding a 3D mountain range to the game. These mountains provide a barrier that will challenge your West Coast aspirations, but can also provide lucrative rewards for those willing to cross them. Rethink your strategies and come up with new ways to execute the management of your trains to score more fame points than your opponents. In addition to the mountain range expansion board, this expansion contains 5 new end tiles, 4 new special tiles, 2 additional train route tiles, 2 new variable common resources tiles, 2 new town tiles, 4 new 6-point gold nugget tokens, 4 new whistle stop tiles, 2 new gold nugget tiles, 9 new upgrades, and 6 new shares. If you're not familiar with Whistle Stop, in Whistle Stop you make your way west across the country using your fledgling railroad company to build routes, pick up valuable cargo, and deliver needed goods to growing towns, creating a network of whistle stops that you and your competitors can leverage as you continue to expand your networks. Along the way, you gain shares in other railroads and watch your reputation soar with each successful delivery before making a final push to complete long hauls to the boomtowns of the West. This design is a new twist on pick-up and deliver games. As players move their trains west and pick up goods, they can deliver these goods to small towns to gain shares in railroads, or hold on to them for a bigger payout when they reach the West Coast. At the same time, they try to optimize their actions and gain extra ones, lay down new track tiles, block the other players, gather and use valuable whistles for special moves and abilities, and carefully manage their coal resources. Whistle Stop Rocky Mountains is set for a summer release. It does require the core game, of course. It's for 2 to 5 players, ages 13 and up, and will play in around 75 minutes. The MSRP of the expansion when it arrives is $29.95. I have to admit, I don't think I've ever reviewed a Bezier game. I know they do Where Words. Yeah, off the top of my head, I know they've got a few titles. But that being said, and I think it's kind of obvious, I don't get into a lot of 18xx games, especially, not on the show. I've reviewed some over the years at the Gaming Gang, and I kind of dig them, but then some of the ones that are real, like, Euro-ish, where you don't really have any kind of impact on the other players, kind of leave me cold. I did like Baltimore and Ohio, which was from Eagle, and it was a super ugly game, but it was a good game. And then I did like Railways of the World, which was also from Eagle. And I have heard good things about Whistle Stop, and it does look pretty interesting. It does have a very unique look to it. And I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll try to see about taking a peek at it, because it does seem pretty unique. And I like the fact that it's one of these 18xx games where you're trying to manipulate the other players as well by, purchasing stock and trying to block them from laying tiles, rails, into other towns and that. So pretty cool. So that expansion will arrive this summer. I don't have a release date as of yet. Now, the Kickstarter news piece that I was talking about, and excuse me as a bit of Smokey's hair floats up into my nose. She hopped up for a minute and then she was gone. That's how she likes to do this on the show. She pops in, says, "Hey, what's going on?" And then says, there's more exciting things down here to mess around with. Anyway, as I was saying, the Kickstarter news piece is from Facade Games, a company I am not aware of, but this does look like an interesting Kickstarter. And it's from the husband and wife team of Travis and Holly Hancock. And they have another game in what they call their Dark Cities line, and it's currently up on Kickstarter. Here is the dope on Deadwood 1876. There's gold in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and you've come to find, or steal, your share. You're staying at one of the 3 major establishments in Deadwood, where you and your associates are working together to steal some of the gold-filled safes floating around town. But you suspect that the friends you're working with are secretly plotting to keep all the gold for themselves. Will you be ready to turn on them before they shoot you in the back? Deadwood 1876 is a social deduction game where you'll work with teammates to find and collect gold. But in the end, the team with the most gold will have to fight each other to the death to determine the winner. Will you spend your turns helping your team find gold or preparing to defeat your teammates in the final showdown? There is a short, about 2-minute video for Deadwood 1876, so let's take a look.
I was a young man in '76 when gold was discovered in the little town of Deadwood, South Dakota. I arrived with the cowboys, gamblers, businessmen, and entertainers, all looking to find or steal their share of the gold. Establishments popped up all over town, and gunfights broke out in the streets daily. Sometimes you could find a friend to lend you a hand, but sometimes you lost everything. People started teaming up, trusting each other, working together to find and share the gold. But greed gets the best of everyone in Deadwood, and it seems that everyone had a secret to keep. I alone was loyal to my friends. That is, until we had collected all the gold. Then, in a final showdown, my hidden gun proved too much for them. The gold was all mine. As my friends looked into my eyes and with their final breaths asked, "Why?" I gave them a little smile and said, "This is Deadwood. What did you expect?"
Hi, I'm Holly and this is Travis. We are Facade Games and we're so excited to bring you Deadwood 1876.
The game is a balance of teamwork and selfishness, and the artwork by our illustrator Sarah brings players deep into the world of cowboys, guns, and gold.
Please let us know if you have any questions about the game, and thank you for helping us to bring Deadwood 1876 to life.
Deadwood 1876 is for 2 to 9 players. It's going to play in about 20 to 40 minutes, and it is for ages 13 and up. Let me point out this project has completely blown the doors off its funding goal. Maybe I should say it's blown the doors off a safe in its funding goal. And you can reserve a copy of the game and all unlocked stretch goals at the $23 pledge level. That's a mighty friendly price. And it also includes free shipping to the US. The estimated delivery is October of this year. I had mentioned that Facade Games already had 2 titles in their, I believe it's called Dark City series. And it's Tortuga 1662 and Salem 1692. And as you can see, the game itself comes in a box that looks like an old book, which on one hand I think is pretty cool. Then on the other hand, it's sort of like, well, wait a second, are you ashamed there's a game? How come it's not in a game box? Nah, I'm just teasing. This looks like this could be pretty unique. And I'll be the first to say that when HBO had the Deadwood series, I watched that religiously. In fact, it aired on Sunday nights. And I'll never forget, I used to make sure that I would have gone to the grocery store, I would have a really nice dinner all lined up, I would prepare dinner, and I would be sitting down to dinner just moments before Deadwood would air for that week. So, love that show. And I've actually been through Deadwood a few times because those of you who have followed the Gaming Gang for quite some time know that I used to deliver RVs all around the country, especially to the West Coast. So I used to have to travel through South Dakota when I was going up to, say, deliver RVs to Seattle. So it's a pretty cool town, pretty interesting town. Unfortunately, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time exploring Deadwood And it's a lot of casinos and things like that, which are fine. I mean, I like blackjack, so can't really say anything bad about that. All right, next up, I'm always on the lookout for cool free stuff, cool free gaming magazines and things like that. And there's a new issue of Irregular Magazine, which I am honestly not familiar with. And there is, it's a quarterly, and the latest issue has arrived. It is issue 5, volume 2, and it's summer 2018, which kind of throws me off a little bit, but I guess they sort of date it as magazines would be, even though as far as I understand, this is only available digitally. But I've got the dope. Yet again, there are some fantastic hobby content. I'm sorry. Yet again, there is, somebody missed the is. Yet again, there is some fantastic hobby content for you to read at your leisure, as we report on a variety of hobby topics and new games, and we have a roundup on the news that has been breaking in our hobby world. Well, it can't be that breaking because it's a quarterly magazine. Anyway, our editor's lifelong passion for the Roman Empire raises its head once more as he looks at crime in the Roman world. We have 2 different articles looking at Roman terrain for gaming in this period, as well as a look at the new skirmish game, Gangs of Rome. It's not all about Rome, however. We also look at World War II with a look at the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong. They spell it Hang Kong. Come on, guys, it's a magazine. Don't you have anybody, kind of spell checking this stuff? There's also a painting guide to painting British World War II camo from Stosie's Heroes. There's also a review of the Stosie's Heroes miniature range from the editor. There's also a further report on Jason's ongoing battle to keep working his way through painting his imposing gray horde of unpainted miniatures, something I'm sure every miniature painter can emphasize with. As well as the Stosie's Heroes miniatures review, we also have reviews of 2 new books from the publishers of Pen and Sword, Painting Wargaming Figures and Tabletop Wargames, a designer and writers is misspelled, handbook. Boy, I tell you, not a good press release here, folks. Interesting magazine. I hope there aren't as many errors in the magazine. Anyway, they take a look at the Model Box Miniature Subscription Service. There's also a quick look at the new Malifaux app from Weird, which looks very useful for fans of this game. And there's a look at the options for freely available rules for medieval wargaming. Finally, Alex has taken a good look at the Star Trek Adventures RPG from Modiphius, who have boldly stepped in a universe that has a great following and history in the RPG space. This 40-page issue of Irregular Magazine is available absolutely free in PDF to download from their website. I will mention, from what I was taking a peek at, the Irregular Magazine does look like it's tailored more towards miniatures gamers, which is cool. I wish I had more mini stuff that I could share with you. Do you have a giveaway that I'll talk about, I should say, in just a moment, about miniatures. So once again, I'm always on the lookout for free magazines, free games. Really, yeah, you'll notice a lot of times whenever I see a bundle of holding for an RPG system that you can save big money on, I'm always looking to bring that to you. All right, so I know there are tens of thousands of gamers out there who are clamoring for the release of Star Wars Legions from Fantasy Flight Games, and it is coming soon. It's just around the corner. There are actually some stores which will begin demoing the game on March 8th. The official release date is March 22nd, and FFG has revealed a weekend of launch events, and I have the dope. Grab your blaster and race to the nearest battle station. Our long-range scanners have detected enemy movement. The first battles of Star Wars Legion are nearly here. The Star Wars Legion core set is slated to arrive at retailers on March 22nd, and you can celebrate your entry into the Star Wars Galaxy's greatest ground battles by participating in the Star Wars Legion launch weekend. Scheduled from March 22nd through the 25th, and with activities running all weekend long, the launch weekend offers you and your friends a great chance to pick up your core set and dive into it alongside other enthusiastic players. Assemble your models, paint a figure or two, and fight your first battles. Participate in any or all of 3 distinct activities: a step-by-step build and play, challenge duels, and a painting contest. Enjoy one or more of these activities, win commemorative prizes, and bring a friend. The Star Wars Legion launch weekend is the perfect time to start building your local play group. You don't need any prior experience with Star Wars Legion to enjoy the launch weekend. I guess it would be kind of tough to have much experience when the game's not coming out until that weekend. But anyway, by the end of it, you'll be ready to lead your infantry into the thickest of combats. The Star Wars Legion launch weekend consists of 3 activities, each with its own rewards. That's right. You can participate in 1, 2, or all 3 of these events as you wish, but the more you attend, the more exclusive materials you can claim. As I've previously mentioned, the Star Wars Legion launch takes place March 22nd with the launch event weekend from the 22nd through the 25th. So you're going to want to check with your friendly local game store to see if they happen to be taking part in this event. Star Wars Legions is for 2 players. Yeah, okay. We know that's not going to last because everybody is going to be like, okay, 2 players? Yeah, sure, okay. Bob and I are rebels. You 2 are the Empire. Come on, we know that's how it's going to work. Everybody's going to break up into groups. The game is for ages 14 and up. It plays in around 1 to 2 hours. And the core set is going to carry an MSRP of $89.95 when it arrives next month. Sweet. This looks cool. This looks really, really cool. I know I will never get a chance to see a review copy of it, but hey, you know, I wish, wishing upon a star, right? Anyway, so that is the news for today. And let me grab a sip here. Thankfully, it is warming up a little bit in the Chicago area. It's still not great. But I think tomorrow and Thursday we should hit about mid-high 50s. So that'll be cool. I'll kind of be able to stop wearing all the flannels and things like that. Start busting out some of my crazy t-shirts and such. Anyway, so as you've seen sitting here over my shoulder, I am going to be reviewing Chariots of Rome from Victory Point Games, designed by Sean Young. Just a sec. But before I get into that, I do want to mention what's coming up on the show for the rest of the week. So I know there are quite a few wargamers out there who are pretty excited for the review I'm going to have tomorrow. I can name one right off the top of my head, Robert Moffat, who happens to also be a patron on Patreon of the Gaming Gang. Thank you so much, Robert. I am going to be reviewing, as I try to pick it up, it's a heavy box, Old School Tactical Volume 2 from Flying Pig Games. So I am going to have a review of this tomorrow. Do want to point out it's going to be a review. It's not going to be a really super in-depth playthrough. So that could be on the horizon for patrons on Patreon. Can't say for sure, but you will get to see Old School Tactical Volume 2 in action. But for the wargamers out there, if you're expecting like a 2-hour playthrough and everything else, nah, that won't be happening. Oh, I'm sure we're going to spend a lot of time with it, don't get me wrong. All right, so that is on tomorrow's show. Then on Thursday, I am going to review Hero Realms from White Wizard Games. Played a lot of this over the past weekend, and we're going to dive into this. Give you a hint, if we played it a bunch this weekend, it can't be crap, right? Because Certainly not going to play a crappy game a bunch of times. Even though I do tend to play games 3 times for review unless they're just god-awful. Then yesterday, I got a little package in the mail, and I think on Friday, what I'm going to do is I am going to unbox and take a look at Songbirds, which is from Daily Magic Games. This is a Japanese game. Take a peek at the back here so we can see we've got Japanese and English. And this artwork looks kind of, very, I don't want to say cute, very nice artwork for these birds. And I guess the premise of the game is that each of the players, there's like a contest for the birds to sing, and you're trying to have the most melodious songbird, I suppose. So this looks like this could be pretty fun. Pretty small box. So that's what I've got for the rest of the week. Do have a contest. I've got quite a few different giveaways going on right now. I'm not going to rehash them. If you'd like, check out yesterday's show. I actually do have it time-coded on Gaming Gang, YouTube, Board Game Geek. It's all time-coded so you can see exactly where I talk about the giveaways. But I do want to mention one that's going on right now. It's going to end tomorrow. So I'm going to announce the winner on tomorrow's show. And it is for a PDF copy of Rec Age from Hyacinth Games. I did a peek at the book last week. I believe it was last Monday that I did a peek at that. And I do have a PDF copy to give away. And it's super easy. I tried to do it last week and nobody actually jumped on board it. But if you're a follower of the Gaming Gang on Twitter, earlier today, I tweeted out, hey, if you'd like to win a copy of Wreckage in PDF, all you got to do is retweet the tweet. Pretty simple. I can't make it any easier to give it away, right? So I will be selecting a winner and announcing the winner on tomorrow's show. All right, so enough of that. Got our news and stuff out of the way pretty quickly, so we're going to go shift over to the other camera because we're going to talk about Chariots of Rome from Victory Point Games. All right, so I have moved on over to the other camera here, and I have to point out the camera is way up. See, here we go. There's my hand. It is way up there because the board is fairly long as far as game boards go. It's not real wide, but it is relatively long. So I wanted to try to fit in as much as I possibly could. You're not missing anything in the upper corner over here. It's just some crowd because this is supposed to be the Circus Maximus. So with Chariots of Rome, obviously enough, we're talking about chariot racing in ancient Rome in the Circus Maximus. Now, there are some players out there, some gamers out there who may remember Circus Maximus, the old Avalon Hill game. And I have mentioned a few times when talking about Chariots of Rome that I played Circus Maximus when I was in high school. I didn't own the game. It was, I want to say my friend Scott Weigel owned the copy of it. And there was also an article in the General Magazine that had some additional optional rules. And I had remembered the game being a lot of fun. And then about 3-4 years ago, I bought a copy, which was actually still in shrink, that I got on the secondary market, busted it out, and I was sort of like, wow, this game just isn't as fun as I remember it being. It's like, the rose-colored glasses of nostalgia. So anyway, with this, I know with Chariots of Rome, I had a few people who had asked. In fact, one of them had asked during chat when I was doing the unboxing is, did I think this was going to be like Circus Maximus for the 21st century? And I said, well, you know what? We're going to find out. So I did an unboxing. We've looked at all of the components, but I'm going to kind of go through just a little bit. Once again, I'm not going to go and do an entire race or anything like that. I am going to kind of show you how the game works and then give you my overall thoughts on Chariots of Rome. So, first off, the rule book is short. There's not a ton to this. So, and it's very, very nicely laid out. Everything makes sense. A few things that you want to really kind of keep an eye on is talking about the charioteers phase. And then when it's talking about the hazards of the corners, that's pretty important, the different attacks. But really you're looking at 9 pages of rules, and then on the back of the rules is a very handy dandy kind of reference sheet for you. So you're going to want to keep this out because it's going to actually tell you everything you really need to know about the game itself. This is not a very difficult game to learn how to play. I would say it took about 10 minutes to kind of explain everything to the gang when we played again this past weekend. There were a couple of players who had not played it before. So there were 3 of us who had played. We had another 2 players join in. So, taking a look at some of the components. So we're going to have the chariots. And these are 4-horse chariots. These are quadrigas. Or quadrigae. 4-horse chariot is called a quadriga. And I know because I have played a PC game of that name for quite some time. It's not graphically intensive or anything like that. It's a little weak as far as graphics, but it's a load of fun because you're actually taking on this chariot racing team and going to, you're getting better and you're going to different places. And, the whole kind of premise of this campaign is for you to end up in Rome competing in the Circus Maximus. So we've got these chariots, the charioteer, the chariot, as well as the horses. There are 8 of these, and they're on a little standee. That back there. So I've just got this set up with 4. So you've got some additional. So like I said, there's 8 in total. There are 4 factions in the game, and I've got them laid out here. These are basically the first chariots of the team, but you do have an additional 4 here as well. So it's 4 racing teams, 2 chariots each. And once everybody kind of has their heads wrapped around the rules, if you've got 4 players, I certainly recommend that each of the players takes on both chariots of their faction, because 8 chariots pounding down around this track here is loads of fun, and there can be a lot of chaos going on in the race. There's still chaos in the race with 4 chariots, but it's just really, really fun with all 8. So we're going to take a look. I'm going to show you one of the chariot cards. So you're going to see we've got these boxes. We've got some tracking to the left, and it's numbered from 1 through 12. You're going to track a few different things in this tracking box. So you're going to actually track the endurance of the chariot, which really is the endurance of both the horses as well as the chariot itself. As you lose endurance, it's the horses running out of stamina, taking injuries, as well as the chariot itself taking damage. So we've got that. Then we also will have tactics. And each of these chariots, each of these charioteers, the drivers, have tactics available to them. You have to use tactics to be able to attack. You can use tactics to avoid losing endurance as well. So for an example, if you were to lose endurance from your team of horses, chariot, the combination, you can spend a tactic to alleviate that. So that's very important later on as the race goes on, because if you hit 0 endurance, basically you crash. The chariot's removed from the race. So if you have tactics left, you're always going to be spending those tactics rather than losing those last couple of points or point of endurance, which would knock you out of the race. There's also rattled, and rattled is pretty much your charioteer. It's not necessarily wounds, but it's more kind of because you can rattle them by attacking, you can rattle by ramming, you can have crashes that'll rattle your charioteer. He's just not up to snuff, really. You know, maybe like the pressures of everything are really getting to the race or getting to him. So you have rattled. So what you'll find is, and I'll lift one of these cards up to kind of show this off a little bit. So we're going to look at Faction Prasini. And you'll see I've got some tokens on here. So you see the one with the light blue, that's the endurance. The green is the tactics. Now the one that's got kind of like a burst on it, it's got kind of a burgundy background to it, that is the rattled. So the rattled starts at 0. So rattled goes up, you gain rattled, which you don't want, and then you lose tactics and endurance. All right, so just to kind of show that off. Then we also have counter where it says speed. Well, they're starting off at a standstill, so they have no speed yet. There's also a token for lap, what lap they're on. So just like so. So they'll show the lap. Now all these counters, these tokens, all have a color. They're double-sided, so they're going to have a color for the faction. So for an example, this is blue with a white line. So this means, okay, this would go with the second team from the blue faction, which is Faction Veneti? I think it's Veneti. So it's kind of cool where if you look at all the tokens are going to have color backing. So when you're setting up the game, which is super easy to set up the game, all you really have to do is flip all the tokens over and then pick out, oh, you're playing red? Okay, here are all the solid red tokens. There you go. Oh, you're playing green? Here are all the green ones. Oh, we got 8 players? Okay, so you're the second chariot for the red faction? Here you go. Here are the red with the white stripes. Really simple. And then you'll see on these cards that they're actually marked. So here we go. Here we see there's the endurance. So that's saying, okay, well, the endurance is going to start here. Of course, that is also your maximum. You can't have more than 12 endurance. Then we're going to see here 8. And the maximum number of tactics you can have, tactic points you can have, is going to be 8. Then we see the rattled. So we see rattled 6. So the maximum rattle rating points that a driver earns or gains in rattled can only go to 6. If they hit 6, they're out of the race. All right, so those are parts of the card there. Then, if we take a look at the right-hand side, this is going to show you the speed. So we're going to see there's a speed level 1, there's a speed level 2, and there's a speed level 3. Now, if we try to take a closer look, and I'm trying to make sure that we don't, because the lighting isn't set for me holding something this high up, I should say. So I notice if I go much higher, it gets kind of dark, kind of shadowed. So if you see, speed 1 shows 4. So that means that's 4 squares that chariot will be able to move at that speed. But it also shows that you'll gain a tactic, you'll gain endurance, and you'll recover to rattled. So basically, you'll lose rattled. Because remember, you gain rattle, you don't want rattle. You lose endurance and you lose tactics. You want as much endurance and tactics as you can have. So you see at speed level 2, you can move 7. And it'll say, okay, well, when you're moving at that speed, you lose 1 rattled. Now, you can go as fast as you possibly can. That's speed level 3, and that moves you 10, but that will cost you endurance because you're really trying to get the most out of that team of horses as you possibly can. You're pushing the limit of those horses, so they're going to lose endurance. All right, so that is pretty much how these faction cards will work. You'll also have a charioteer, a driver for your chariot, and they all have special abilities. And I have to bust out the old reading glasses on these because the text isn't really big and the text is kind of light. So for an example, we've got Valerius, who is the opportunist. And it says, the first time only that you gain tactics during a round, you gain 1 additional tactics. Your maximum stays at 8. Then we've got Apollinaris, quick reflexes. Whenever you are attacked, you may ignore any 1 action card suffered from it and redraw it. The redraw's result is applied instead. So each of these charioteers are going to have a special ability. There are 13 charioteers in all. Some will require more than the 2 players. So for an example, you can play a 2-player game and have 4 chariots if you want. That's pretty easily done. But then we'll see some of the really kind of powerful, more experienced charioteers. It's going to show a 3+ down here. But I thought that was pretty cool that we had some additional charioteers in the game because, with a possible 8 total chariots, VPG could have easily just said, okay, well, here's 8 charioteers. All right. Then, with some of the cards here, we've got initiative. The initiative cards are super easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take an initiative card that matches the faction and the chariot that is in the race, right? So we've got 4 factions. We've got the first chariot of each of the factions in the race. So we're going to have these 4 initiative cards, and they're going to get shuffled up every turn. So you're like with these 4, you're going to shuffle these 4 cards. Then you're going to have the action deck. And the action deck is going to resolve a lot of different things. So it's going to resolve when you do a whip attack, when you try to ram another chariot. It's going to take effect of if you're going into a curve and you're taking the curve too tightly and you're going too fast, you're going to have to draw action cards. And then there's also if a chariot is removed from the game, if a charioteer, I should say, is removed from the game, there's also going to be a danger down here. Well, the danger is used for other things too. All right. So, for an example, we'll see it says corner, ram, whip, danger. And it's pretty big deck of cards here. And of course, you're going to shuffle these up. Then you're going to have fate cards, which is kind of like the favor of the gods, possibly, or something that could affect everybody in the race for a round, or it might take place instantaneously. When you roll your dice, because there are some dice in this game, when you roll a die, if you get this lightning bolt, that means you're going to draw a fate card. And all the players don't draw it. Just the first player is going to roll the die to see what happens for all of the chariots, all of the factions. So it's possible that you'll be able to regain a rattled. It's possible that you will be able to regain an endurance. Possible all of the charioteers are going to be able to regain a tactics. Or there's 3 sides that show this lightning bolt, which means you would draw a fate card. You don't draw the fate cards right away. You have to go through 4 rounds of the race before you'll actually be rolling this die to see what everybody's going to get. So for an example, here it says Apollo's Touch. This round at the beginning of your adjustment step, you may roll the try die and regain up to that number of endurance for free. So when this would be drawn at the beginning of that round, you're just going to place a card so that everybody can see what that effect is. What's going to happen. So this is that's for the entire round. There might be something that just happens immediately. So that's an example of the fate cards, and there's quite a few of them. There are quite a few of the fate cards here. All right, so the meat and potatoes of the game is the actual racing part. So I do have the chariots all over here, and I am going to jump up and zoom in a little bit, just give you a better look. So we've got the 4 chariots that are in the starting positions. What you'll do is you actually will draw the initiative cards just so players can choose where they want to start in this starting area here. So the first person would be, okay, so we got the red faction. Red would have chosen, okay, well, maybe I want to go here. Maybe I want to go there. Whatever. I've just put them all together just for the heck of it. And I'll re-roll, or I should say re-roll, I'll reshuffle these 4 cards. Strangely enough, I would have thought, now, of course, this is just me. I would have thought maybe what VPG would have done is for the initiative, because we see this sort of thing in a lot of the auto racing games, where maybe you would have had a card and you pull the card and it shows all the teams and who's going first, who's going second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so on. Because it is possible, it's not likely, but it is possible that someone could continually end up going third or fourth, or with 8 chariots, maybe they keep going 6th, 7th, or 8th. It's a possibility. It could happen. But I do also want to point out, just because you're going later in the round as far as taking your turn for your chariot, doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. And I'll kind of get to that in a moment. We also have a tri-die, which is effectively a D3. So there's 1 through 3, the Roman numerals for those, on the die here. So as an example, let's say we're going to start the game out, right? And like I said, once we kind of move a little bit, I will actually delve into a few of the other things. So we've got initiative. Okay, so we've got the green faction is going to go first. So an option that the players are going to have. So starting off here, they're at a standstill. So they don't have any speed, right? They haven't gained any sort of momentum. So they're coming out, you know, kind of like out of the gates, right? So we got the green here. So the green player will say, okay, so I'm going to take my speed. I'm going to set my speed to speed 1. That's going to show you, okay, so we already took a peek before. Speed 1 is showing that that's going to be able to move 4 spaces. But what you can do is you can also spur on your mounts. I believe it's called chivying. But you're spurring on the mounts. You're cracking the whip. You're yelling at them. You're pushing them for all they've got. If you decide you're going to do this and roll this tri-die, you will have to spend an endurance from the horses. But remember, what did I say before? You don't have to necessarily spend endurance if you have tactics. So let's say the green player says, yeah, I want to come out right off the bat. I want to be moving along pretty quick. So they decide they're going to spend that 1 tactic point and they're going to roll. So got a 3. So you're going to add that 3 to that 4. So move 7. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he's now out of the blocks, now getting into the actual Circus Maximus. So this is the only time you're going to come out from this starting area is in the first lap. All the rest of the time, you're just going to keep going around in the oval. So we draw the next player. All right, so it's the red faction. Red faction says, hey, you know what? I'm doing the same thing. I'm spending a tactic. I'm going to roll my die. Wow, they get a 3-2. Pretty sweet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so they're out. Who's next? Got the white faction. They decide, hey, I'm going to be like everybody else. And they also roll a 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then finally we have blue, obviously enough. They say, well, if everybody else is spurring on their horses, I'm doing the same thing. Wow. 4 threes in a row. Sweet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be it. That would pretty much be the end of the first round. Because the way that the rules kind of state is the first 4 rounds, you can't attack anybody. You can't, you can't whip them. You can't ram them. You can't try to kind of push through, because you can be kind of backed up behind somebody, and you need to kind of be fenced in. You're kind of fenced in by the other chariots, so you're trying to blast through, trying to work your way through. And then also you're not going to start rolling these until the 4th round. Usually by the 4th round, you're already into a turn. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to hop up here, zoom in. We're going to get a little better look. And can I fold it up? I think I can. Yep, it's going to fold up this way. So what I want to do is I'll bring this over a bit. I'm sorry that folks are looking at my butt. What can I tell you? And let's get this over so we get shot. Got it? Okay, we got it. All right, so let's say we've gone a few rounds, and now we've gotten to the point where it's looking like this. Okay. So with these chariot racing games, normally what you will always say, blue. Come on, blue. So Russell Higgins has money on blue. All right, we'll have to see what happens. Okay, so let's say we've been playing this for a bit. We're past that 4th round, right? Okay, so we're gonna take these. We're gonna shuffle these up a little bit. For some strange reason, I'm looking up at the camera and it looks much darker than it actually is. All right, so I'm taking a look at the preview. I'm like, yeah, okay, that still looks all right. So we've got the initiative here. All right, so we're going to see, okay, who's going first? All right, so the white faction's going first. And let's say everybody right now is on speed level 2. Because during the game, what you can do is you can increase your speed by 1 level. Or you can decrease your speed by 2 levels. Because it's easier for you to brake than it is for you to accelerate. So we've got the white horse, the white chariot, I should say, is going to go first. So what they would do is they're going 7. Now, if you take a look right here in the turn, it's numbered anywhere from 4 to 9. And when you first enter into a turn, what you're going to look at is what is the speed of the horse. So right now, the chariot, I should say, the speed is 7. And then you also have to look at the rattled. You add the 2 of them together. So a rattled charioteer is going to have a harder time taking tighter turns. So we're going to take a look at, we've got the white player here, and the white player says, okay, you know what? I'm going all out. And at this moment, I'm just pretending that these charioteers, they're all equal, that they don't have special abilities right now. So they say, okay, so I am going to spend another tactic, and I am going to spur on these horses again. And then they'll roll. Okay, so they're going to get 2. So they're going to have 9. So their speed is going to be 9. So they can move out here, because it's always better to take turns wider than tighter. So that's going to be 1. And if you decide you're going to do things like attack other players, there's actually a little token here of your color. that you put down in the square you're coming out from. Just because it makes it easier to remember what was going on. So you're going to take, another thing you can do too is you can take the die that you rolled and put it next to your speed. So that you know, okay, so for an example here, I've got the white die, the tri die, I should say, sitting on the white player's card, the white faction card, to show that, yes, their speed is 9. So that's going to be 1 to move out. Now, in a situation like this, the white chariot player can decide, okay, I'm going to whip this blue chariot. I know Russell's betting on blue, but the white player's like, no, I'm trying to stop this guy. So he would have the option of whipping him at this point. If they continue on to here, then they have the option that they could either whip the other chariot or they can ram the other chariot. So for an example, let's say that the white player says, yeah, I'm going to ram the blue player. They'll spend a tactic point, and most of the charioteers can only attack once. So they're going to spend a tactic point to attack. And then, remember I was talking about this action deck. When you're ramming someone, they're going to have to take 3 action cards. You're going to take 1 because you're ramming them. What you talking about, Jeff? I don't know, Russell. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Chariots of Rome. Chariots of Rome. I'm doing a review for Chariots of Rome today. Russell must have showed up a little late in the show. Okay, so in a ram attack, the player that's getting rammed is going to take 3 action cards. The player that's doing the ramming is going to take 1 action card. With action cards, you can use your tactics to avoid having to resolve an action. But let's say, for the sake of argument, the blue player says, no, I don't want to spend all those tactics avoiding these cards. Let's see what I have to do. They're going to take the first one. It says ram right there. So the ram itself shows a tactic. So that means the blue player loses a tactic. So he's using kind of defensive tactics anyway. Next card shows yet another tactic loss. And then the third one shows a swerve. See the little kind of swerving arrow? So that means that they have to swerve. So they're either going to have to swerve inward or swerve outward. And when you swerve, you always swerve to the space behind you. So let's say, okay, blue decides they're going to swerve off that way. Then, of course, the white player would have to resolve theirs. It says ram, and it shows a rattled. So the white player would actually, oops, I'm doing green. White player would actually earn a rattle to their charioteer. So remember, they had 9 speed. That attack doesn't do anything with their speed. So we already know we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now they've entered into this turn. So the difference between the 7 on this row and the speed of 9, plus remember, now he gained a rattle, that is going to be 3. So we're looking at 9 speed, 1 rattle, that's 10, minus 7, that's 3. They're going to draw 3 action cards. Whatever the difference is what they have to draw as far as action cards. And they are going to resolve 1 card for each space. So we already know we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to do 8, resolve the action, and we're looking at corner. So the corner is telling us we're going to lose 1 endurance from his team of horses, from that chariot. Next one, shows corner. Another endurance lost. So now they've moved their 9 points, and they still have an action card they need to resolve. That action card is going to actually sit there until the next turn. That's going to go with the white player. They're going to hang on to that card and decide either to pay tactics to not resolve it or resolve it in the beginning of their next round. In a situation where you have action cards in your round, you cannot change your speed. Something else that's important to know when you go into a corner, when you're going into a curve here, if all you got to worry about is when you first enter it. When you first enter into the curve, that's when you have to worry about the action cards. After this, next turn, just because this white chariot is in the middle of this corner, they don't have to worry about anything. They're not going to have to worry about drawing any more cards, even though they've got a speed of 10. All right, so give you an example. Next in the initiative, I forgot to throw the green back in there. Next in the initiative would be green. So let's say green's heading along and they're going at speed 7, and they say, you know what? I'm going to stick to speed 7. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so they're entering in here, right? So they're at speed 7. That's a 6. They're going to draw 1 action card. But then let's say, for an example, the green player says, okay, I'm going to spend a tactic. I don't want that. I don't want to have to resolve this. Okay. Goes back on top. You don't look at the card before you decide if you're spending your tactic. You're using a defensive tactic. You have to spend it before flipping it over. So the card goes back on top of this action deck. Let's put the action deck right there so we can see it. And the next person who has to draw an action card is going to have to worry about dealing with that or not. All right, so then we still had 1, 2, 3. So they took that turn pretty well. There's kind of an interesting mechanic in the game as well as far as corners. So the first player to enter into a corner gets nothing. They just do their regular thing. The second player who enters into a corner actually gains a tactic. And it's sort of along the lines of, well, these charioteers have seen what's going on ahead of them with the other chariots that are entering into this corner. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is going to help me out navigating this corner. That's kind of how it's looked at. So then let's say who's next? Initiative deck says blue. There you go. There you go, Russell. Here comes blue. So blue might be sitting there saying, okay, well, I'm at 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That'd be 2 action cards I would have to take. But, I know I'm going to get that 1 tactic because I'm the 3rd chariot to enter. So, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to draw their 2 cards. And then the blue player says, no, I'm spending tactics. I don't want those at all. Boom. And they move 2 more. And then you've got the red player who obviously is going to go last. The 4th chariot who would be entering into this corner. And of course, if you have more than the 4 chariots, if you've got, let's say, 8 chariots, then what you should break it down to is the first 2 get nothing, then the next 4 get a point of tactics back, and then the last 2 would get 2. So we know he's going to get 2 tactics, 2 tactic points. So he's coming in at 7, and he says, hey, you know what? I'm getting 2 tactics. I'm taking this turn really sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that he's going 7. That's a 4. That's a difference of 3. 3 action cards. He gained 2 tactics. So he says, no, let's put these 2 back. And then I don't want to spend any tactics. I'm going to resolve this, and it says corner. So he's rattled. So he decides he's going to resolve that, and he gets a rattled card. So, of course, he would then eventually have his charioteer gain a rattle. As far as whipping is pretty simple. You're just going to draw 3 action cards, and because you're whipping, there's no concern about your own chariot taking damage. Now, there is a charioteer who will allow you to actually attack twice in a turn, because normally you only get 1 attack that you can spend tactics on. And when you're whipping, you can be either, let's say blue is here, blue could whip here, blue could whip here, blue can whip there, and blue can whip there. Can't do anything to front or back, directly in front of you or directly in back of you. Now, there are situations where you might be boxed in. You might have a chariot that's boxed in. So let's say like so. Let's say the red player here happened to go first. Well, what are they supposed to do? There's nothing they can do, right? They can't say, well, I'm not taking my turn. So what they can do, as long as it's past the 4th round. So remember, you're not looking at drawing fate cards. You're not rolling the fate of the gods kind of die here until after the 4th round and later. Can't attack anybody 4th round or later. And then you can't try to power through until the 4th round or later. So all you simply do when you're powering through is you need to be able to finish in a space ahead of whatever you're trying to get to, right? So the red player could power through and move to here. To do so, they're going to have to take an action card and resolve the danger, because you're actually trying to plow through these other chariots to try to overtake them and pull through. So you would actually take your card and take a look at what did the danger say. It's kind of a last resort when you have to do that. A lot of times it's much better for a player, let's say red player was down here. Probably a better idea to move 1, 2, 3, and then around. Maybe put in an attack as they go past, so on and so forth. It's really interesting because you can have just big pileups, because with whip attack and with corners and with ramming, you may end up seeing that you have to swerve. So you may have a chariot that has to swerve when they're doing the action cards. Maybe they have to, and you can you can only swerve outward in a corner. You can't swerve in. So you may swerve, and then if you have to swerve again from here, you're hitting the wall. That's a crash. So as you're playing along, as chariots get knocked out, that when their charioteer hits a rattled of 6, or they hit an endurance of 0, that chariot's actually removed, and then you'll have debris. You'll have debris that ends up getting placed on the track as well in the Circus Maximus. So there's a lot going on with the game. Nothing really, really difficult to wrap your head around, because for the most part, you need to know how many cards do I need to draw for this. The only time that it kind of starts getting a little hectic is when you may have chariots who had to swerve into another chariot, so there's going to be a crash. And you can really even mess yourself up, like trying to ram somebody, and you have to take one of your actions, and if you resolve that action, it may tell you you've got to swerve. You may have to swerve into another chariot. So a lot of little things can kind of domino when all these chariots are all packed up together. So effectively, what you'll do is you'll play through the game, and if there's only one chariot remaining before you've crossed the finish line, well, then that's going to be the winner, because there are no other chariots left in the race. But if you do have more than one chariot in the race, when you come along and you'll have your laps completed. So normally, just a standard game, you're going to play 2 laps. In a longer game, you're going to have 3 laps. There's even options for a 7-lap game if you want something really epic. Highly doubt that the chariots are all going to remain in the race for 7 rounds. I would find that very, very difficult to imagine. It'd probably be down to maybe 2 chariots by the time you're in the 7th lap. But anyway, what'll happen here is when you've got your initiative, and let's say they're pounding down this last straightaway. Let's say the white player ended up, they got the first initiative card, and they passed over. This is the finish line, the white here. They're not the winner. They're not necessarily the winner because they happen to cross the finish line first, because all of this is kind of supposed to be taking place simultaneously. So what'll happen here is whichever chariot is the furthest across the finish line at the end of the round is the winner. And you know what? Since Russell's watching, there you go. I'll have blue win. Blue won. You can go cash in your winning ticket there, Russell. Hey, and as always, thanks for watching. So anyway, so that is pretty much how everything works with Chariots of Rome. As I mentioned before, it's not difficult to figure out. It's pretty easy to wrap your head around some of the very, very basic concepts to the game. It meshes together very, very nicely. I do dig it. A couple of things I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit different in the game. And I'll mention that in just a second. About the only difficult thing that some people may have is forgetting to mark where they started at, or making sure that they've got something to indicate what is the speed. So for an example, I've got the blue card here. This is kind of what I was talking about. When you're spurring on the horses, so you've got a speed of 7, and then let's say they rolled a 2. I recommend just put the die there so everybody knows that you're looking at a speed of 9 total. And then making sure that you put down your little start counter. Now, if you're just moving, you're not attacking, you're not going into a corner or anything like that, you really don't have to worry too much about this start token. So anyway, I like it quite a bit. I enjoy it a whole lot more than I do. Well, it's been about 3 years since I played it, but I enjoy it a lot more than Circus Maximus because very, very easy to wrap your head around. The Fate deck is pretty cool. All different stuff can take place. People who are looking for more of a historical sort of game, you might want to sort through the Fate cards and take out stuff that's like, especially mythical, like a mythic deity involving themselves. It doesn't throw the game off that much because really it's just it's what the charioteers or the crowd is thinking, because all these people believed in this whole pantheon of gods. So there isn't anything that's really too fantasy-ish that's involved in the game. Just a couple of things that I looked at is, like, one of the things, because like I said, I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good game. I would have liked to have seen a little more effort towards like a campaign game. And the reason behind that, as I mentioned earlier in the review, that I'll play the PC game Quadriga. And I really like the fact that there's, like a campaign to it. Now, in Chariots of Rome, there is, if your charioteer is eliminated, you draw a card and you take a look, and then it has a little kind of, right here, survival table, right? And it tells you, oh, okay, so what happened to that charioteer? Maybe he was just hurt, but he's going to be able to shake that off. Maybe he's severely injured and he retires from racing altogether, and maybe they're killed. Anything's possible. But outside of that, I mean, it's just kind of an option. It really doesn't do anything for like a campaign. Whereas I would have thought it would have been kind of cool if for the different charioteers, if maybe there had been like a value, because there is an option where you can draft the charioteers. So what I think would have been cool is if you had like a payout for each race. So if you came in first, you get this, come in second, you get this, so on and so forth. Players all start with pretty weak chariot teams. So you don't actually have a named charioteer. They're just pretty basic. They have no special ability. The charioteers can get wounded during the game. And simply all that happens if they take a wound, you just flip the card over. They lose their special ability for that game. They take a second wound. That's where you have that survival table. They're eliminated. Wounds are not, they don't take place too often, but you can see them happen. Anyway, but I would have liked to have seen where it would be something like, okay, so your chariot's not that great, and your team of horses aren't that great. So maybe your endurance to start off with is 9. And your charioteer's not, you know, he's not experienced. So they start off with maybe 2 tactics. And then have like a sheet where it'd be like, okay, so if you want to improve your team of horses, you would have to spend this much gold. If you want to improve your charioteer, you have so much gold. You could have these different charioteers all have like a salary, kind of like, okay, well, I want this guy to be on my team, so I have to pay him his salary. And then if another faction wants to steal him away, they can pay him more. I just think that doing something like that would have made this where it's something you'd be like, yeah, all right, let's play, you know, 3 races. Let's see what's going on with Chariots of Rome again this week. Let's bust it out. Just have like a little save sheet where you can have, okay, well, this is my faction, your faction, so on and so forth. No, it's not in there. Which really, that's the only knock I've got. I mean, to me, that's what kind of prevents this from going past like a 9 on a score of 1 to 10. If it had kind of like a campaignish thing in it, oh yeah, I would easily be giving this more than higher than a 9. But as is, it's a lot of fun. It's a cool game. It's not going to be overly complex for the various different players. It's going to scratch that itch for players who enjoy Circus Maximus. Maybe not in the same detail as Circus Maximus could be, especially with that optional article from the General that I recall. But in the end, all in all, the other little knock I have is I would have liked to have seen these a little thicker, more like cardboard than just kind of paper. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong, and it's not just a sheet of paper, right? But I will say there's probably a reason why that's like that, and it's not cardstock. But I give Chariots of Rome an 8.6 out of 10. And I do have to point out, it is available through victorypointgames.com, and it's $39 plus shipping. And I really have to say, $39 is a pretty good deal for this game. And that was one of the reasons why, yeah, I would have liked to have seen thicker card for the faction sheets for each of the chariots. But it's not that big a deal because it's a $39 game. And if you're familiar with Victory Point Games, and if you've played Victory Point Games over the years, you'll recall that some of the Ziplocked games that they had ran in like the $30 range and more, 30 and up. So for $39, this is a really, really good deal. I do want to also point out that it has a pretty small print run. So if it's something that you're interested in checking out, by all means, pick it up sooner rather than later, because Chariots of Rome, like I said, does not have a big print run. So snag it. But yes, definitely dug it, enjoyed it. The whole gang liked it. one of the players, for some strange reason, just kept having a hard time figuring out the whole speeding up, slowing down thing, and that they couldn't just smash into like other chariots that were in their way. You can't just move in a straight line and slam into chariots in front of you. Yeah, okay. Guess I haven't seen Ben-Hur. Either version, right? Or any other chariot racing sort of movie or scene or anything like that. All right, so that is it for today's show. Hey, as I mentioned, as we opened up, I figured we'd go a little bit longer than an hour. So when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to go visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Oh, come on. By now, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And I do want to say thank you so much if you're a subscriber and if you like the videos. Appreciate it so much. I really do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow with my review of Old School Tactical Volume 2 from Flying Pig Games. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until tomorrow, do your best to enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.